This is 3 steps to lock in. Let's start with a little quote here, because it encapsulates the main issue. Sun Tzu, the author of The Art of War, said, "If you know yourself and the enemy, you shall not fear the result of 1,000 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every battle won, you will suffer defeat. But if you know neither yourself nor the enemy, you will succumb in every battle." And this applies here perfectly, because who's the enemy? Procrastination. So first, you need to know the enemy. And from knowing the enemy, let's start with, what is procrastination? It's just you not doing the thing that you're supposed to do. And why are you not doing it? Just grab a piece of paper and on top of the page write procrastination, and in bullet points point out, why do you not want to do the task? Maybe it's boring, maybe it's, it's repetitive, it's this and that. It doesn't matter. You need to address those things. You can address each of these things, and there's literally 2 ways to go about it. You can either force yourself to do the thing anyway, use your discipline, willpower, whatever, to do the task anyway, or you can address those issues that you pointed out by either fixing those issues. So, if it's, let's say you think it's boring to learn, like you think learning is boring. Well, yeah, I agree. It is boring if you're using the same methods taught in school, because those methods are like so unnatural. Like, can you imagine this? How would you learn when the human beings were like starting to develop learning methods? If you wanted to be a blacksmith, you would go to the blacksmith and he would not sit you down to read a passage about striking iron with a hammer and make you read it 20 or 30 times, and you would consider that, oh, you've learned it. No, he would show you how to do that, and he would give you pointers why you strike this way, that way, and such and such. This is the way that people learned. You don't learn by mindlessly rereading the notes. You don't learn by doing something. Yeah, you may memorize it for like a day. It'll be in your short-term memory. But like, to learn it effectively, there are better methods, frankly. And that applies not only to, physical skills, where, yeah, you can get those pointers, but to cognitive skills too. Like, it applies with math, it applies with physics, with programming, whatever. And yeah, you might say, oh, but I don't have someone to teach me those. Yes, you may not have someone to teach you one-on-one, but you probably have tutorials on YouTube. Dozens of them, a lot of them pretty good ones. You see someone do something, and as they do it, they explain the logic behind it. Why this and why not that and such. That's the more natural thing. And it's like, and afterwards you just do it. And you don't just repeat what they did. You put your own spin to it. You think like, oh, this is how I make like a random number generator in a programming language. So, the first thing that came to mind is like, oh, I could make like a program that generates the poker hands. You have like a 24 card deck, and it gives you like, random like 5 cards. And yeah, that's how I did it. Like, when I was learning like, randomization in programming, I wrote a poker game program, which wasn't even that advanced. I just spent like, a bit more time over it, like maybe twice, but I remember it till this day. The random exercises that I did from like the textbook, I don't remember them. Maybe if you would tell me like text of the exercise, I would be like, oh yeah, I would do it this in that way. But that's because I know how to program, not because like I remember how I did it. It's just because I've developed the logical thinking for that. And for stuff like history and stuff that you can't really apply it, you just need to like learn something, like memorize information and, know the context, be able to like, think clearly and reflect on that. Studying methods like, flashcards, or, just grabbing like a blank sheet of paper and writing whatever you know about the period of time we're speaking of, or whatever. You just dump all the knowledge that you know onto a piece of paper. It doesn't need to be in a particular order. And then you look up to the book and you reflect like, oh, I didn't include this nor that. This is the one I got wrong. This is I got good. And after like a few times of that, you'll be like, you'll spend like, I don't know, 1 hour, 2 hours. You will get better results than someone who tried to like, read the book for 5 hours. And it will be more fun. Yeah, you'll be like, oh, but are we writing the same thing over and over? You can write it in a different way. It's still gonna be quite fun to be like, to see that, oh, I'm improving, like I'm doing this so much faster. You may take like, I don't know, 5-10 minutes in the first time, but in next times you will be like, in 5 minutes you will write twice as much, because you will have like things ordered in your head, because from all the like clutter of random information that are scattered like random items in your attic, suddenly like an order emerges, and like where things are. It's like when you declutter your attic and that, oh, this is where this thing was, that thing was, this is where like the box of photos is, and whatever. Like you can imagine that as like decluttering your attic, but for your own brain. So those are the two like example methods. You can do whatever methods you want. It works just the same. Another thing you can do to stop yourself from procrastinating is to gamify the experience. Literally just, score yourself. Like gamifying is for making it more fun. And in a way you did kind of like made it more fun when using the proper technique, because, learning things is fun. Like learning things is actually fun. Like, wow, mind-breaking things. Like humans enjoy getting better and better at things, but that's only when like you get tangible results. Like you see that you are getting better. Like like that method I mentioned about like dumping your knowledge onto a piece of paper. Like in a 5-minute writing book, you can write out like 2-3 times as much information after like just 1 hour of doing that, and it's way more detailed and such. That's the kind of like visible progress you get. Like when it's like just a number changing, like when it's like percentage wise, it isn't as like you don't see it as a win. But when you realize like, oh, in 5 minutes I was able to like fill up the whole A5 page, now I've done like 4 of them after like, I don't know, 2 hours of studying, in like, okay, maybe not in 5 minutes, but like everything I knew about the period of time could be fit in an A5 page. Now it's like 4, and it's like, it's way more ordered. So it's like, okay, that's really easy way to see the progress, and that kind of gamifies the experience. Like whether it's like pages, or yeah, even the percentages are okay, but like they're not the best way to gamify the experience. By the way, you can also gamify it by kind of setting it up like a quest in a video game. Like when you make your to-do list, like you can kind of structure it like a quest in video game, like break it down into steps so that it's less like intimidating. Like 1 hour studying time is like kind of like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like you got that energy going on when you look at it. It's like, I just sit down on a desk and like kind of like look up the summary of the chapter. It's like, it's way easier. And when you go for like steps and like, you just need to like read this bit and this bit and this bit, and now it's like the reading is done. Now it's like fun time where like I'm just kind of writing whatever I can remember, and it's like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. You just reflect on that as you go, and it's like, that is kind of fun when you see yourself like, oh, over time you just read way better quality like text and make way more of it. You just visibly see your knowledge being like more refined with every iteration, and there's more of it too. And the second, even more important part, which is know yourself, or know thyself, like Socrates put it in, is like in English and in Greek. Good luck reading that when it's mirrored through the camera, by the way. Yeah. First thing you need to know is your weaknesses, because when you look at things that you were procrastinating on, you will realize like, oh, there's a few common factors like that happened before I started to procrastinate, and on these things, and that didn't occur when I was not procrastinating. After you reflect on enough instances, you'll realize like those few things. Like for example, when when I go to sleep, I cannot chill. Like literally at the end of the day, I cannot wind down. And I'm not the guy that can just wind down, chill for like the last hour, 2 hours, and then sprung up from the bed and be productive. I'm a guy who's like, if I don't have positive momentum going from like evening, very evening, the moment I go to sleep, I will feel like, I will wake up like kind of like half confused about like what the fuck was I supposed to be doing and such. Like I will not have that sense of direction that I would if I would be doing like something like, as simple as just reading a book that kind of inspires me and such. It like makes me think about things I want to do tomorrow. And if I read like a random novel or whatever, it's like, yeah, I don't start a day with that positive momentum. Literally, it's like if I don't do something productive before like going to sleep, I will literally just wake up confused, and the last thing you thought about before going to sleep, your mind loops around and goes over and over and over about that thing. And that's why it happens. Like at least for me, like doing that just helps a lot. But for you, there probably is something specific that you can just fix, and that one little change will be like just that thing that you really needed. Don't look for like some silver bullet, but like there's genuinely a thing that like changing just one small thing, it can just give you that enough of a push that just with like willpower and whatever, you can push through the slog of like starting the day productively and start feeling that positive momentum. And on that we'll go into the third step, but before that you also need to know your strengths. And knowing your strengths means that you need to know what you can rely on. You get that positive feedback loop, like stuff Ali Abdaal talked in his Feel Good Productivity. You feel better, therefore you have more energy, and because you have more energy you are more productive, and because you are more productive you feel better and you have more energy, and so on and so on. It goes any which way. Just play to your strengths. Like let's say you may be someone who like is more of a visual learner, so like writing things down physically is way better for me. Like I'm a bit more of a listener, so like I do way better when I'm listening to like an audiobook or whatever. You may be a visual learner, same thing. Just play to your strengths. Then there's the third thing which also plays into play with your strengths. Know what fuels you. You need to know what fuels you, whether it's like a carrot or whether it's a stick, because both carrot and the stick work. But you may think that you're more of a stick works for me, the negatives work for me, the negative emotions and such motivate you more. But when you look up and see like, wait, it's actually the positive, or when you were like more like, oh yeah, positive stuff motivates me, and you do way better when negative stuff motivates you. And that's kind of a thing. Like you can be that guy who's like, example of like negative things motivating you is like those guys who like after a breakup they go to the gym and they in like a month worth to get in the best shape of their life. That's like what people call it, breakup gains and such. That's like the negative emotions just turning into energy and fueling you. Like for example, when it's like purely physical with me doing stuff like running and lifting and such, negative works for me very well. But when it comes to like productive stuff, like the mentally demanding stuff, that like just working, like recording this video, editing the video or whatever, positive energy for me, like it just works better because I feel way more motivated when I remember why am I recording this video. It's those types of things I do better on that positive energy, that carrot, that I'd rather do it because of a sense of purpose and be able to show the gratitude to the people I'm grateful for. When you are like fueled by negative emotion, like just greed, yeah, it may motivate you, but it's just like you need to know, like you figure it out which kind of energy fuels you, whether it's like, you wanting like, better career to like help your parents more and such, or like, the, more of a just wanting like, oh yeah, I want like, I'll show this guy, I'll show that guy. It's like, the, kind of a revenge-ish, like fucking like, show her what she lost type of energy. Like, yeah, I use both. Using those energies to like, be productive, both work, but just you need to know yourself to the point where you know which one works better for you and for what task it works better for. Anyhow, the third, and by the way, that's so far the best piece of advice here. The third advice is the battle philosophy, and like, or like the battle mindset. Because look, here's what I mentioned when in the morning, like, when I wake up and I have that momentum, it's easier to start being productive, right? When you, let's imagine it as a hill. The harder the task, the bigger the hill. As you have like positive momentum, you start and you capture the hill. When you defend a position in war, you need 3 times more troops to capture the position than to defend it. If it's up the hill, it's worse, but it's even worse. So like, when you already have like the momentum, when you're already productive, it's easier to stay productive than to like, kind of fall back, be unproductive, like scroll Instagram for like a few minutes. And like, if you're thinking that, oh yeah, I'll do the Pomodoro thingy and I'll just scroll the Instagram for 2 minutes, for like 5 minutes, and go to study for like, 25 again. What you just did in that scenario is like, you captured the hill and you fall back, you let the enemy take it, and now you're like, you're in the disadvantage now. You're the one in the disadvantage who just needs to put 3 times more effort to get back to where he was, rather than put a third of the effort to just stay there. And like, you may think like, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense, but like, is there any, how can I know this is true and you're not just making some bullshit up? If you read the deep work, you may remember chapter where the author said that there's like a residual focus where like for the first like 10 minutes of 10 or like 15 minutes of you switching to the new task, your brain is still thinking about the previous task and it's only firing on all cylinders after like the 15 minutes of doing the new task. So imagine yourself doing the Pomodoro technique. You're learning, which is something that it's pretty hard. You get like resistance from just that, like it's still hard, and you haven't developed the skills from like the point one. It's still kind of hard. It's gonna be a bit hard anyways. So it's like you're still having to go uphill to get to the point where you want to be. It's still an uphill battle to like kind of start being productive. When you do the 25 minutes focus on learning, you really do like 10 minutes of deep focus where you're like you're firing on all cylinders to learning. Rest is like, what you do in those first 15 minutes is like, it doesn't really matter that much. It really doesn't contribute that much. The last like 10 minutes, so that 25 minutes really is the time where you truly learn. And if you just prolong the work block, you still keep the 5 minutes rest. But if you just prolong the learning block for 5 minutes, it's 20% increase in time you spend. But then, in that full focus mode, you don't spend 10 minutes, you spend 15 minutes. So for extra 20% of effort, you get extra 50% of results. And yeah, the further you go, the more the diminishing returns kick in. But like, you see this principle that I've outlined here is a little fucking silly graph that like, it's easier to be productive when you already start being productive. And it's easier to keep on the task than to let go of the position you're on and then have to, then have it 3 times harder to get back to the very state that, to the very flow that you were in. When you're already having this much momentum and you think it's gonna be way harder to capture that skill, to get to the state that I'm in terms of productivity, that I'm gonna defend it at all cost. Like, because I know that, hey, getting back here is gonna be 3 times harder. Like, literally, if you were to start learning, then take a break, do something else, like scroll like Instagram or even like read a book, you'll be like kind of dreading the thought of going back to learn. You would, for the same amount of like willpower that you would use to like get back to doing the task, you could have kept yourself focused and learning for like another half an hour for just the amount of willpower it takes you to sit down at the desk again. That's why like Pomodoro technique is a load of crap. Like, literally, just by prolonging the 25 minutes to 30, the time you spent in that deeply focused period grows by 50%. It is scientifically easier to just prolong the focus on the same thing than it is to, stop doing it. Like, you just need to keep the position. Like, when you are productive, you just need to keep being productive, because it is gonna be easier to stay productive than to stop being productive for a while and come back to it. It's illogical to do that at that point, and you will be like, every time you think about, maybe I'll do this and that, and it's not something that's productive, like, you will be like, wait, but I have all this momentum, I don't want to waste it. Like, when you have like, let's say you did your learning session and you're done for the day studying, you're like, well, what else is there that I can do that is productive, because I'm already in the flow state of being productive. You're in already the right mind space to like be productive. So it's like, oh, you just randomly like grab a book and start reading it instead of scrolling on Instagram. It's like, it is more productive. Yes, it is more productive, but doing that choice was surprisingly like easier, because you already have the momentum. If you would start scrolling the Instagram and think, oh yeah, I'll just scroll for like 5 minutes, it ain't gonna be 5 minutes, by the way, but even if it will be, if you decide to like, first scroll Instagram and then read the book, the amount of like, you will not just roll over to like the new task without any problems. It will be like trudging through the thick snow. Like, when there is to be like, when in winter, like there's sometimes like snow that's like up to your knees or up to your calves, and then you need sometimes to like trudge through it, especially when you were like a kid and you were like shorter or whatever. You remember that trudging through the snow, or like trudging through the water when you go to the beach? It's like that. It's like there is a resistance when you do that. When you already have the momentum, and it doesn't even need to be the same thing, it just needs to be like, you being in the right space of mind to be productive, you'll find it that, it feels like there's barely any snow, barely any water, there's barely any resistance in comparison. There will be resistance, but like, there is barely any compared to when you are starting from zero. It always takes like, way more energy to start than it is to keep going. And this applies to everything. Laws of physics, the ways you wage war, the ways you live. It just, everything works that way. The most amount of energy to light up a light bulb, like this one right here, is not when it's, it keeps being lit up. It doesn't take the most energy in that moment. The most it takes is on start. The most amount of energy a car takes from the car battery is on start, for a starting motor. Because if you don't have momentum already, you need a bit more of an external force. And whether it's like a starting motor or your willpower, it works the same. As in, it needs more energy to start something rather than to keep going. And yeah, of course there are limits, like just work till your like output just drops. Like a good sign I should end this video is because I started to ramble on in way more directions than I intended. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.